April 6, 2023, 7 p.m. We will record attendance by stating your names, and Ms. Banner can write them down and indicating presence. Start with Shirley.
Shirley Green, present.
Carol Wyman, present.
Jay Wellens, present.
Lee Davis, present. Yes.
Oh, Whitney Baker, recording secretary.
Kate Plumley Stewart.
Doug Smith, present.
Gerald Tice, present. Okay, the first order of business is the minutes and the corrections of minutes for February 2nd.
Was there an edit for February 2nd? I had that one as already voted final.
Well, it was not correct, so let's get it correct.
Okay.
The voting for the presentations we made at the Shaker Museum were all paid for by an anonymous donor. There was no tax dollars or no conservation funds used, so that there needs to be a correction for the invoice of 37787.
Yeah, so I made a note, it's on page 2 of the version that got voted on previously, that the cost of the expenses was later covered by an anonymous donor. It's at line 69, line 70.
Right, because I
Mentioned
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Yeah. It's in there.
So I don't have those on my minutes, at least.
Are they the final version? It would have been, I corrected it the last time it was voted on, so it would have been on the final version that I sent out.
This doesn't say draft, but I read it over, and the amounts that were stated there were moved and
So I left all of that in there because it had been what happened at the meeting, but then I just made a note that they had been covered by an anonymous donor.
all right, well, then maybe is that sufficient correction as far as the rest of you are concerned, or do we need to delete those amounts that were approved? I originally asked for approval so that we knew that the people who were going to supply the information or they supply the services were approved, not necessarily the fees. But what do you think? Do we require that those amounts be deleted, or do you want to just leave it the way it is?
So you can't delete a motion that was legally made, seconded and recorded. I think that's what's important. You have to follow.
You can correct the minutes.
Well, if it was said and done in a meeting, you can't correct the minutes to something that didn't happen. You can't obliterate a motion that was made, seconded and processed. You can do what you did and have a later note on it, but you can't change a motion.
Well, I haven't gotten a note on my copies. So could you provide, Ms. Banker, could you provide a copy of the minutes, at least to me?
Yeah, I can forward them again. They would have been in the packet that had the March 2nd minutes too.
I have that.
All right. So, you say that these minutes had already been approved, because I don't have any indication of that.
They were approved at the March 2nd meeting with the correction
Okay,
from Shirley to just note that these were covered by an anonymous donor.
Find it right here.
okay, so, the next minutes that I have that, are in need of approval are the March 2nd, 2023 minutes. Have you all read those?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Any corrections or additions?
Nope.
I didn't find any corrections. I moved to accept them.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the March 2nd, 2023 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll
So
abstain.
Pardon?
I'll abstain.
Yes, you weren't there.
Legally, you can, but I have a practice of abstaining for myself.
The next is the March 17th minutes. Need to be approved.
I have a correction. I think I wrote a different name down. I didn't put Carol's name, but you were at that meeting, right? Where, Ed Morris was here. Were you at that meeting?
I was at the emergency meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
special meeting.
Right.
Yeah, I had your name down incorrectly, so I've made that adjustment on my copy. It's not correct on anyone
Okay.
else's copy.
Anyone have any, corrections or additions to those minutes?
No, I read them. I didn't find any corrections.
Move to approve or entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 17th.
Move that we approve those as presented.
I
With
second.
correction regarding Ms. Wyman's name.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Yeah, I'll abstain
I'll
because I
abstain as
wasn't
well.
there.
The next order of business is, I have approved the, payment to Ms. Banker for her work in, March. And if anyone wants to see the invoice she sent, I'll send it to you, or I'll give it to you to look at. You got that payment already, Ms. Banker?
I might have,
Okay, it's $40.50.
might not have, but they're all kind of all over the place.
Yeah, well, I'm told that I just need to write to Lisa and say, that it's
Approved.
approved to pay those. I don't have to go down there and sign anything anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, under new business. On March 2nd, 2023, the DES requested more information from the shoreline permit for 4 Nancy Way, which is tax map 10A, lot 75-A13. And if anyone wants to read what they're asking for, I'll pass this around. Otherwise, I'll just read it out to you myself.
I'm sorry, could you, since I don't have the benefit of having a packet like other people, could I have the tax?
Then nobody has this.
Okay, I see everybody looking in something, so.
Yeah.
If you could
We have
read
a
the
map.
tax map and lot number is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So that I have the benefit of actually being able
I
to.
didn't know you had been appointed to the committee, so I didn't
You
get one
did.
made for you yet.
You did, we emailed about this.
Is it supposed to be 14 Nancy's Way?
It's map,
4.
it's map,
10.
tax map 10A, lot 75-A13.
Oh, 13, okay.
Okay, say it one more time, please.
75A13,
75, A.
13 and then she's
So they have, asked them to clarify the total impervious areas calculated as the shoreline application worksheet shows a total of 8,854 square feet, while the planning drawing proposed impervious areas seems to provide a different total. So that's one of the things. They wanted to provide a set of plans and dimensions for the location of all existing and proposed structures. They've asked them to please review the checklist required for items after the application form to ensure the plans include all required details, as several items are missing. And this is something that I think we should bring up to the DES and to the people who are providing the plans for these activities. We're not getting those plans, and the provisions from the DES indicate that we should be getting copies of those plans. Because without those, we have no way of knowing whether there's something worthwhile mentioning or not.
I had a conversation with Ed on this. There are certain ones that are legally required to notice you and certain ones they aren't. He's still been sending over copies and CCing, but there are certain things that you don't have to be by law. So he's been trying to get you copies anyways of what they can, and they'll continue to do that.
Who will?
Ed, when they comes into the office. So, but you're not gonna get a copy of everything you wish you got. You're gonna get a copy of what's required by law in large part.
Well, this really ties our hands, because if we don't have the plans, we can't really make any intelligent comments about what needs to be looked at or what our concerns are, and we can't send anybody out there to look.
Right,
And there are certain things, like when you apply dredge and fill permits, when they sign off on that dredge and fill permit, they automatically give the Conservation Commission the right to go onto the property and look.
right. And so you are getting all of the required plans because they bring in a plat, right? And anything that they're required to make a copy of, they do make a copy for conservation. If they're not required by law, they're not making a second copy. We're not gonna give out the only copy. That copy is always available downtown. So you know how you withheld documents and told me I could make a photocopy? It's the same thing. Those plans are available for you to look at if you feel like you want to look at them. It's that the applicant is not required legally to make you a
What
copy.
determines whether it's required?
State law. So it's state law. We're not, and that's the thing, it's you, when you
But
get
it
a copy.
Depends on what kind of a permit it is, or?
Yeah, and Rob Taylor and Ed can answer a lot more of that for you, but those plans are always available for you guys to look at. So for example, I had something that affected one of my properties. I came in front of you. I was not provided a plat and there wasn't an extra, but I came down and looked at it. So you can do that at any time. And you know, there's regular office hours here. So, and Ed explained that to me because I know that you.
Yes, I know that too. The trouble is that it's very inconvenient. Some of these people are still working on an
Yeah.
8-hour day. And in order to get there individually, this represents a considerable inconvenience, first of all. Second of all, when we are looking at them individually, we don't have a consensus of what the considerations are with regard to the plans. And I think that that's something that I'm going to have to take up with the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions because I'm on the legislative committee, and maybe we can get that changed. So these people are required to send us the plans so that we can actually look at them as a collective body rather than 7 individuals wandering down there to pester the clerks to look these up.
Right, well, and that would be in here. You're not pestering them. They're here to do work for us, right? Like we pay tax dollars. They're nice folks. And I think, I'm looking around, I think everyone's probably at least partially retired.
I can't get away
So,
from 7:30 to 4:30.
yeah, no.
Stop wearing
So-
so many hats, Shirley.
Yeah, but you know that Rob would leave them here too, like his office is open. So I think it really is a matter of, if you feel very strongly you need a copy though too, he can take a picture and send it to you, right? The problem is that we don't have a printer that's a large scale printer. So we're not gonna, unless you guys want to pay a lot more taxes and have them go buy a giant printer just for this, we're gonna
That's
get
what it
copies
is.
that are.
It's oversized stuff that.
It's the larger plats typically that, so, and if they provide a copy to us, it gets passed on to you like an extra, right? So you can ask, but you can't require them.
So you said it's not a requirement of the,
There's different, it's different applications have different legal requirements. It's not anything the town sets.
okay.
So, but it's certainly, they'll do the best they can to facilitate you guys accepting that.
All right, well, I have no more comments upon that particular thing. The DES is doing their job, and basically they will send us an update of what they have finally decided on this plan, because they've been doing that in the past. And I'll let you know, of course, if, does anybody want to make a copy of this particular requirement? Okay. These are all kept in the minutes of the meetings, and they're in my house because the town doesn't have adequate storage facilities for all of our stuff. And once in a while, I need to go back and consult those things. Okay, the next order of business is March 14th, 2023, DES Wetland Bureau revised plan received for 65 French Road in Enfield, tax map 17, lot 24. We've visited this particular piece of property many times. The people that are the Wheelick Trust in care of Paul French, trustee, is having a hard time complying with the regulations. So they've asked them to revise the title plate of the plan to proposed restoration plan as requested in the November 29th, 2022 department letter. Revise the plan drawings and tables to accurately depict the grid number 8 existing and or proposed tree point information. This is the requirement that there be so many trees of a certain diameter within 100 feet of the shoreline. Plantings were requested for grid 13. However, as no plantings were proposed for this grid, please verify whether this grid will be impacted or not by your project. If no impact are proposed for the particular grid, then planting would not be required for it. Include the latest revisions date in the plan table. So these are all things that the DES has caught. Unfortunately, we never received a map of this particular person's activities. So we had no idea that these things were being omitted in their subsequent applications.
I thought we had that in here because this is the one where I mentioned
We had
that
the
I
original.
grew up right next, yeah.
Yeah, we had the original one, but
And I
all of
stayed
the
there.
other revisions we didn't have, so we had no idea what they were complying with. The DES is got that.
My having walked that property after we discussed it, I don't see where they're going to take out any trees. The driveway is already in. There's already a driveway on that property. They may widen it a little bit. That was recently, within the past 15 to 20 years, was logged.
Yeah.
There are very few mature trees there anymore. It was selectively logged, but basically those were 100-foot pine trees that had been there since I was a wee pup, and they,
Were these within the 100-foot
the entire,
shoreline?
property was,
See.
I don't want to say, well forested.
Yes, but did they clear cut it right to the shoreline?
No, they didn't clear cut it. They selectively cut
Forested.
it out.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I mean, from my recollection of having grown up there and what I saw, they went in and harvested the mature trees, which needed to come out of there because they were old. They're older than me, so that's really old.
Excuse me, could you introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Craig Sanborn. I have the privilege to be trail master of the Cardigan Highlanders Volunteer Trail Group. And you apparently need a trail master.
Yes, I have this suggested responsibilities that were put together by Alan Strickland, who was the former chair of this committee. So I brought those for you to look over, and if you want, we can make a copy of those.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is the voting at the town meetings. The town did pass the 100-foot setback from prime wetlands. And they voted down the Articles 15 and 16. Not by a great deal, but nevertheless, I think we can not expect to get much funding to support the Conservation Commission from the town. So I think the next job for us to do is to begin to look for grants that provide funding for conservation work. The New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions is got a list of these kinds of things and grants that are available, and I will be going through them and seeing what I can provide in the way of information for us to prepare these kind of grants. And when we find something, it will be necessary for members of the commission to volunteer to write up these grants and submit them on behalf of the Conservation Commission. We have the authority to provide grants, so to apply for grants ourselves without any other permission from members of the Board of Selectmen or otherwise. So we can proceed with this in an effort to improve what we need in the way of funding.
I would suggest though that you work with the town, because if you're gonna have money coming in to town coffers and going out as an expenditure, it still has an approval and operating process. So
It depends whether if it's put into the conservation fund,
mhm,
that conservation fund is under the exclusive spending by the Conservation Commission, does not require any signature by the town manager or the BOS. That's one of the good provisions that has provided the Conservation Commissions in all of New Hampshire some economic independence. The groups that control the purse strings can control what action is given, and that is often a way of stifling what might be considered by some people as objectionable activities. So we do have that prerogative, and
I would suggest that you still go into it with an air of cooperation. Don't go into it in a way that is contentious. You know, I would give the example of the signs. You guys went out and bought the signs, and went and asked to have them put up without going through the process. So whenever you have a process that's gonna ask somebody in town to do something that's outside of your purview, it's really good because it's a good stewardship of your funds, right? We wanna be good stewards of the funds and use them for good purposes. I don't think anyone's gonna intentionally stifle you. We're there to help you walk through the process so you don't waste a bunch of money on something that isn't gonna go forward.
well, it hasn't been wasted. We're going to put up game cameras. In fact, I just hauled a dead deer away from 4A between Bog Road and George Hill Road today. And we're going to put up game cameras on people's property, so we have the opportunity to put those game cameras up. We're going to go to the people and ask them for permission and begin to record the animals that are crossing the roads that we had originally put up, some of which was actually suggested by Jim Taylor, because his crew has on occasion run into deers on Grafton Pond Road.
Sarah, you're saying where you found that deer? Tuesday, I drove that stretch of road. There's a herd of deer feeding in I'd call it a herd. There's at least 20 deer feeding in a field right there.
I probably counted or saw the same herd along Shaker Hill.
Yeah. This is right across from George Pond, well, almost. It was that house that has it's yellow on one side
That's
and no
right,
paint
that's
on
where
the other.
dead deer was.
Yeah, that's where I saw the
You
herd.
took away the vultures' food, you know.
No,
Yes, you did, because the turkey vultures feeding on it the other day.
you haven't let me finish.
Oh, okay.
I called Mr. Taylor, the Department of,
The Department of Public Works.
the Department of Public Works. And he said, yes, go ahead and haul it away, because if you don't, we will have to, and we have to put it in our bone pile. So I have taken the deer carcass and put it onto my property. And that will provide the opportunity for vultures, coyotes, foxes, bears
Yeah.
to have a rotten meal, but nevertheless, something they're perfectly content with.
You put a game camera down there?
I'm going to put 3 game cameras down there to record. and
I'm
compass.
dying to see. I have Sally's house every night, 10 deer cross right there, right down, every night.
On
Every
Lock
night.
Haven.
Lock Haven,
Yeah.
every night.
Well, that's one of the places we intended to put
There's
a
2
wildlife
already been
crossing.
hit right there.
There's a wildlife crossing right at the cemetery, and the deer
Yes.
crossed in front of it the other day, and my daughter shouted, "He's not after the sign." So but I think it goes to show that an 8-year-old knows that deer can't read, right?
Yeah, no.
Well,
I mean,
these signs are basically public safety signs, just like the signs that say caution children at play. Those are scattered all over. roads
You
here.
can
And
go through.
excuse me when I'm talking.
Nobody's
And
talking.
although I've been here for 12 years, I've never seen a child playing on George Hill Road. So there are signs out for public safety that may or may not be useful anymore. But these wildlife crossing signs are public safety signs. They're not necessarily signs that the wildlife are going to read.
So the Board of Selectmen, under the advice of the Department of Public Works and the Chief of Police, has declined to put those signs up. So you guys can pursue this as much as you want. It still will have to go back in front of the Board of
Yes, we
Selectmen.
realize that.
And you would have to be able to change your minds. You don't right now have the support at all, and I don't know if it's a great exercise. So I just want you to understand, just because you go through the exercise doesn't mean you're suddenly gonna get to put signs wherever you want.
We're not putting signs wherever we want. We're putting signs where there is evidence of animals crossing and evidence of them being hit by automobile. And that will be the procedure that we take. The state highways are not under the purvey of the Board of Selectmen. And we may actually put some signs along those roads if we find there's adequate reason for doing so.
Yeah, and we've been in contact. We have close contact, obviously, with the State Department because we overlay the same roads. And so right now, it did not sound like they were inclined to put up signs, but if you're successful with them, you are.
Well, I would like to voice my opinion that along with Chief Holland, signs and signs and signs become white noise.
We realize that. That's why we're going to get the objective data to
But if you
justify.
get the objective data, this deers are still gonna cross in front of you, whether there's a sign there or not. And we, the people of Enfield that travel here, need to exercise that right foot in these eyes and slow down and pay attention.
The signs caution you to do that.
Oh, okay, but Jerry, I drive up and down,
You're,
drive up and down Route 4A. And I'm having a brain cramp. What's the, road from the, what road do you live on?
Rockhaven?
Okay, Lockhaven.
Hmm.
And I got deer coming out in front of me and I drive on, my road.
you are one of 4,000 people that live in Enfield, and you may be cautious, but obviously the dead deer on 4A indicates somebody who wasn't.
I've hit a deer on 4A. And I drive very carefully. And I'm driving up through almost to the Shaker Hill Road. Deer was there. Literally jumped out of the bush,
Yeah,
so we
I
can't. say
realize
that-
that those are situations that may not be involved. The other thing too is that when you see a deer cross the road, I always come to a stop because they often travel in pairs.
Yeah,
The next
so do I.
deer will be the ones that jump out in front of you. So I wait to see if there's one that's waiting. Those are kinds of sensitivities that come with education, and we have the need to provide that kind of information in our website.
I'll bet you where I hit my deer, you haven't had any indication other, that's the only deer I've ever seen killed there.
Well, those are things that we wouldn't be putting a sign up for. We're talking about the things that there are large numbers of deer crossing. Anyway, that's,
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move
Let's
on,
move
please.
on.
okay. There's no old business. The next thing, you all have copies of the BCM Environmental and Land Law Optional Powers, RSA 36-A4A. You may want to read those. These are optional powers that conservation commissions have. And they at times become important for us to know about. The other is the State of New Hampshire's Office of the Governor, March 9th, 2023, who was giving a reason for trying to eliminate all of the certifications for wetland scientists, foresters, soil scientists, and so on in the state.
Yeah, that made the newspaper too, yes.
Didn't they
Well,
get-
I have an update.
Did it get-
The legislature has taken all of those statements out of bills, House Bill 5 and House Bill 592, I think it is. So those are not in the bills, and therefore the certifications for those particular groups will be remain.
That's good.
And I heard tonight on the news that there was a voice vote that approved budget as it was rewritten.
Great.
That's
Is
good.
that both houses or just the
No,
house?
just the house.
You have to
to
go
go
to
to
the
the
Senate.
Senate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think April 6th is when it goes to the Senate, according to what I've received.
Oh, good.
Okay, so that's that. The Conservation Commissions, the Association of Conservation Commissions, did, write letters, opposing H2 and H453, 367. And those were, those apparently were instrumental in getting the legislators to abandon their efforts to control those or to eliminate those. The governor's justification was that it was going to eliminate red tape and reduce costs in the processing of various kinds of applications. The federal government has licensures for those particular types of positions, but they are the licensures that cover a broad scope and are not necessarily relevant to individual states. And where wetland scientists, soil scientists, and foresters are concerned, New Hampshire has specific problems that need to be addressed. And these certifications that the officers here must pass address those issues so that they are aware of them and are required to know what the regulations are. And so that's the approach that the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions took, and it apparently has been successful.
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the business is the VOS meeting of February 21st, 2023. In which some comments that I made were included there. With regard to the preservation of the 100-acre area that the town has declared to be surplus property. And there has been a committee formed, of which I'm hoping there will be adequate representation from the people who live on Methodist Hill on this committee to discuss what will be the appropriate disposition for that 100 acres. And that committee, as far as I know, has not been formed yet. Perhaps Mrs. Stewart can provide us with some information as to
Yep.
Has the committee been formed?
Yeah, so I go by Ms. Stewart. Mrs. is my mother-in-law who lives on George Hill near you. So the committee has not been formed yet. We have a bunch of upcoming deliverables for all of the projects in town that you guys know about, the building projects. So we delayed the formation of that committee. It will go out to an open ask, just like we did with Johnston Drive. And we're looking at the makeup of the committee. We've been very happy with the format of the Johnston Drive. I think you guys got to see them in action if you went to that joint meeting, and they've been very fair and very impartial. There very likely will not be any abutters because the charge of the select board will be to interview the abutters, right? And so instead of limiting it to a couple of people, you'll get a much broader scope if you are able to include them in the process and invite them in. So it likely will have a team that's laid out similar to the Johnston Drive Beach one. And again, it will be an open ask. I think there were 32 people who applied last time, and we tried to balance it out. It's a hard
Is
task.
that unusual to have that many?
I think it's, we've changed how we ask, right? It's the same thing for committees. We make a very open ask. We publish it in different forums so people can see it. It's on the website, it's on Facebook, it's in the newsletter. It goes out as the email blast if you're signed up for those. And then typically on things that are, we don't post everything to the listserv because it's not a town list, but we do that. And so it had really great responses and some just really high quality folks who, and it was kind of sad because you don't want to just include somebody who's excited. So hopefully we'll have that same kind of quality and diversity of background again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next the next item is the two letters that were sent to the editor of the Valley News. One was by Gene Patton, which basically was an inaccurate representation of the town's ownership of property. And the second one was sent to the Valley News by me as a rebuttal to those information. Carol, you asked for a copy of those two letters. You can go to the machine down there and copy those.
Okay.
One of you, I never saw the one.
Yeah, I never saw either of them.
Yeah.
And again, as a matter of process, right? I know you guys not always had somebody here to help you with process, but the expectation of boards and committees is that documentation be provided before the meeting, or you don't make any motions or further business on it until everyone's had a chance to have a copy and review. And there are people here in this office who can help with copies if that's a problem. So.
How about for stuff like just correspondence? I mean, that's where we're at now. It's not motions involved, it's just correspondence.
Correspondence, yeah. So if you're gonna discuss it really in the manner of open meetings, you should be providing a copy to the committee in advance, right? So everyone could, so it's very hard if you haven't read the correspondence to have that discussion.
How far in advance would you suggest?
I would suggest, I mean, to me, at least one business day, but I think a better practice is if you can get it when you get the agenda out. It's helpful because you all have different schedules, right? So a week or so gives you, now I understand sometimes you're gonna get something a little further down the line and add it in, but really a good practice is to have it in advance. And I did ask for a copy, but did not get one.
So much of what I get are hard copies. I can't send those out by email because I don't have a scanner to scan them into the email. So does anybody have any suggestions as how I can get you those copies? I can put them in some spot, or if I get them soon enough, I suppose I could mail them to you, but I don't have the secretarial staff that the BOS has to copy these and send them out.
It's not a matter of secretarial staff. So Rob, you know, Rob Taylor is your appointed town liaison, right?
Nobody told me that either.
Well,
Just like they didn't tell me you would have been appointed as a seventh member of the Conservation Commission, and I would appreciate a letter from the Board of Selectmen making a note of that.
you're not gonna get a letter, you're just going to be told because that's how it works. You don't get to dictate how the Board of Selectmen work, but you do have access to Rob right in this building. There's a secretary that serves this building. They're the same people who provide you some of the other stuff you're already getting. So you absolutely have an ability to have somebody help you with scanning. That's a great resource, and it could be sent out via email, probably a little more environmentally friendly than copying it, driving it around, or putting it in postal mail.
Well, I thank you for that information. I didn't know Rob Taylor was available to us to do all that.
It's not, Rob is your point person. They have a secretary in
Yeah, I
here. So if you need help on that.
So what is the date of
Did
your
they call you?
tenure for the Conservation Commission? 3 years?
Jill.
Yes,
Don't know.
But typically on the select board, over year, we discuss who's gonna take which role.
Yeah.
So it's possible that it will change.
Change what?
It's possible that we'll change people. So we rotate through different committees to build our body of knowledge, to build our rapport, to make sure you get the connections that you guys need. And obviously, if you haven't been getting support, then I'm here to help you get that support and make sure you have it. It's something that we've been rolling out. We have 5 people now, so we're able to do this committee before it was, it's a lot better. So, I think you'll be seeing more and more of that. If for some reason someone really desperately wants this role next year, I'd be willing to discuss it. So I can't tell you what's gonna happen in a year, but for right now, I'm here.
I think, I'd just like to make a comment. I think because we've never had any attention before.
Mhm.
It's a little hard to fall into the traces with a team because we've always been on, basically more or less on our own, so.
Yeah, I think you deserve more attention and more support.
Oh, yeah, cause Whitney has to guide it, so.
Yeah,
Ivy does a great job.
Yes, she does.
she does.
I was at the meeting where they divvied up all these, and Kate says, well, we've now got enough select board, so each one can have a few without overburdening, and Conservation Commission had kind of been set aside because whether you want to say it or not, we weren't quite as important as the CIP and the Budget Committee, et cetera, so we became the redheaded stepchild.
And there was no legal requirement. There are some that are a legal requirement, but I think really making sure in the spirit of cooperation that we're really focusing on our committees, because that's part of the reason for expanding to 5, at least in my mind, is that you guys get the attention and the support you need. And we certainly have folks in town who are paying tax dollars to help us out. So you guys should be, benefiting from that.
Well, let's just back up a little bit regarding getting correspondence out. I'm pretty flexible. I mean, if someone in this office could scan and get it to someone, that's fine. Or if there was a mailbox here, I don't have a problem just driving by here and picking up stuff. If it's there and ready to be picked up, either way.
Well, I will get Rob Taylor to scan letters that are sent to us and put them out on the email then
Yeah.
to the members of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause you can take the packet, right? Like in your paper and just give it and he can right through. And then there'll be a scan copy and he could hit print if someone wanted to put in a mailbox.
Okay.
And if you guys don't have mailboxes and you want them, I'm sure we can find a spot for them. It's totally up to you.
Okay.
Is there a time frame, like say, Dr. Tice gets correspondence like 2 days before the meeting or a day before, that should be postponed for the next meeting? Because we wouldn't have that in our packet. I just want to make sure we're doing everything right.
I think it wouldn't make your agenda and you typically, as a matter of practice, you could be like, hey, we got something, but put it on to the next meeting. So acknowledge that you got it. If it needed to be addressed in the interim before you had a follow-up meeting, you could always, you guys know how to post a special meeting. So, and just that way for transparency, right? It's the same thing we do for select board. There are sometimes something comes last minute and we bump it out. And if it's something that has to be addressed in a time, we have to post another meeting. So there's a lot of ways to do it and make sure that we're working with the public and in the public spirit.
So it sounds like, Jerry, you can just like you said, hand it off and they'll scan it and we can get emails. That makes sense
So
to
we
me.
come in the email.
Yeah, so that's what I will do. From now on, I will just type up the agenda, put everything that I have from the mailbox for the Environmental Conservation Commission together, bring it over here to Rob and he will then see to it that each one of you gets the email address. That'll take a lot of time wasted for me. Oh,
There you go.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's good.
Very good.
Yeah, we're getting a
And I think
system.
we'll be more informed about
We're
what.
getting a system. We have our packets.
Sounds good.
it'll be probably a little more stuff for you to make that. You all have copiers, right? That you can copy the
Yeah.
stuff that they sent to you?
Yeah.
But we
No, I
can get
don't.
printed.
I don't, because
There's a lot of meetings you go to, it's already printed for us to
Mhm.
pick up a packet.
I've been trying to get them to stop printing them in favor of the environment, but
You know
you,
what?
if
Well,
you need it printed and you can read it better, you should have it in the form that's most available.
Oh, I
to
can
you,
read
right?
it on my little Kindle, but you can't print from it unless I send it to somebody.
Yeah, I'm just saying for visually, some people read better from paper. You should get it in the form that's most
Okay,
visually available to you that works best for how you work, right? There's no reason you can't have it that way.
Because I use a lot of ink every year for all committees, printing all
Really,
this
just
stuff.
ask before the meeting, can someone print copies, then someone.
Well,
I
wait.
can send it to Celia, she can print it.
Okay.
So what I will need, is any of you who have updated your email addresses
Mhm.
recently. I don't think, I have, because I've sent them all to you and nobody's got it rejected.
Yeah, I think we're all.
But if you, for some reason or other, do update your email address, please let me know straight away, because
Yeah.
it will be those that Rob Taylor will be using to send out this material. Okay, good. The next is a letter from John Welnick to the Upper Valley Land Trust regarding a piece of property.
Well, it wasn't really a letter. I just informed them of some information that I had regarding that property. I went online and just informed them.
The back of him,
Yeah, regarding the back property. And then she replied by saying, yep, this is something we are aware of and we're working on it.
Jay, where's the property?
It's Thomas Gage Road. It's right at the top of Methodist Hill. When you get to the T, before you go down the hill.
Yep.
You go left. It goes all the way to the
Yep.
end, and it's a beautiful piece of property up there. Used to be a Christmas tree farm.
Okay, thank you.
And it's just beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, it's been deeded to Simmons College.
That's
where the husband of this woman, who's
Worked there.
now died, used to work.
Yeah.
And so they're
Yeah.
going to put it up for sale. Hopefully, the Upper Valley Land Trust, which has a piece of property that borders the
They
Snow
do.
Mountain Conservation Area.
Yep, that does border that, yeah.
So hopefully they will be able to negotiate a sale with the Simmons College and keep that acreage open.
how many acres?
100.
I think it's more than that. Is there only 100?
Well, it says here that, no, I beg your pardon, that is 645.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
yeah.
640.
About 600 acres, yeah.
Sorry.
And in a but some of it's in Plainfield too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I went over that property some time ago and it would be a shame to subdivide that and build on it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to leave it open, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where it stands. She replied and said they've had their eyes on it. They're very aware of it, so they're on top of that. Whatever happens, but
Did you ask her to keep you informed of what their progress was?
no, I didn't.
But would you do that?
Yeah, I can
We need,
ask. Yeah, I can keep in touch with her.
Since
Yeah,
you've made contact with them.
Yep, I
It
can
would
keep
be
in
helpful for us to know
sure.
where the process of negotiations are.
Yep.
How many acres are in Enfield?
600.
600.
Yeah.
Here's your town forest.
Right. Well, if it goes to the land trust, that's fine too.
Yeah, because they're gonna trade it the same.
Yeah.
They're gonna make it available for hiking and et cetera, right?
Is Snow Mountain part of UVLT?
So you have 600 acre town forest.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Really nice.
Okay, so the next thing I have is a correspondence from Mr. Harrison Drinkwater with a bunch of questions about what would go on if the Article 16 failed. And basically, that those questions have been answered by the decision to formulate a committee. And it turned out that the original warrant article was amended on the floor, and that amendment was put up and approved. And so in some ways, we haven't lost the possibility of getting that 100 acres into a town forest of some kind anyway, or at least into a conserved region. So if anybody wants to read that letter, there are those questions, I'll pass that around to you.
I'd like to make a quick comment, if I may.
Go right ahead.
I think it would, even though the two amendments on town meeting day did not pass, this is the date. I was very proud of the way everybody stayed and took got involved in which way they were gonna vote. I thought it was, I've been to a lot of town meetings, and usually at the end of the town meeting, there's nobody there. And it seemed everybody was excited, enthusiastic in their decision, what they wanted to see. And I thought that was good that we caused a commotion.
Agreed,
Caused a commotion.
agreed. I mean, it was awareness. It's
Yeah.
important awareness and little steps. I think, I agree.
But I would comment that the commotion was done without animosity.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was very
Everybody-
polite,
Agreed. Yep.
regardless of your side of the
Yep,
coin.
Yeah,
Everybody was very polite.
that's very good.
Yeah. I thought it was very. good.
Our town attorney is also on the select board in his town and commented on just how well Enfield town meetings run and how we have really strong opinions and strong discussions, but that people walk away friends, and that's really nice to see. And I don't know if you saw what happened in Raymond, New Hampshire. They had 46 warrant articles and someone attacked and beat the town moderators. So,
What?
yeah.
What?
Who happens to be a friend of my mother's. So I think it's a credit to Enfield that we've really, even on a tough topic, we come away, we still love each
But it
other.
was just, I was proud of
Oh, yeah.
everybody.
It was great to have everyone there at the end.
Yeah,
It really
it was great.
was.
That's all.
Yeah, good comment. Thank you.
And you guys did a great job when you provided an education on it because you boosted interest. And I got really good feedback on
Good,
the education piece you guys did.
good. Good to hear.
So the next is a letter from Lisa Bonnet, which basically says that the Article 16 is amendable on the floor, which we all know, since that amendment was accepted.
Yep,
Did we skip there's a letter from Kim Butler?
Yes, this letter was actually saying the same thing, basically. Warrant articles may be amended in the deliberative session, but such amendments are subject to 4 primary limitations. First, the amendment may not add a new subject matter to the article, RSA 39:2. Second, a warrant article whose wording is prescribed by law may not be amended, and ours wasn't. Third, the deliberative session cannot increase the overall budget, including warrant articles, by more than 10%. And finally, the amendment that would eliminate the subject matter of an article are forbidden. So the committee that was, the amendment that established this committee was basically, following all those regulations. There wasn't anything to do with the change of the subject because the committee was going to be discussing the potential uses of that 100 acres.
It's interesting. I didn't know that,
Drink
the
one.
budget can only be increased by 10%.
Yes.
That's a good thing. There is a limit there.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, and the,
you had me on there twice, Jerry.
Yeah,
so
I know.
move on.
that one,
I'll talk to him.
I got out of order here. Your first one was regarding the 100 acres on Methodist Hill. The second one is regarding the Gage Road thing, although both of them were mentioned in that original first article. So this letter from John Welnick just thanks
That's me.
Jeannie for their information. Appreciate the work your organization does. Signs it's Jay. And this other comment is, Dear Jay, your message was forwarded to me. You may know that Upper Valley Land Trust owns the land Snow Mountain Conservation Area, which adjoins the Beckhoffen land. We are in communications with the estate because owning and conserving this property has been a long time goal of the Upper Valley Land Trust. 25 years ago, the Upper Valley Land Trust print newsletter featured a winter event we held on the Beckhoffen property in appreciation of its outstanding conservation attributes. Various options will probably come become more clear as the estate goes through the process, and we will stay in touch. So that's
Okay,
the opportunity for you to maintain our liaison
Yep.
with those people.
I have a fundamental question about the town forest. Is the way I was reading, definition of a town forest, that the Conservation Commission is going to have to manage it. And management of a forest is not something that's in my background. I'm just wondering how we would go about managing 100 acres, you know, as far as properly foresting it.
Well, first of all, the town forest is not necessarily manageable by the Conservation Commission. We put that into the warrant article because when a town forest is managed by the Conservation Commission, then the Board of Selectmen is restricted in what they can do in terms of selling the property if they want to. So we put that into the warrant article to ensure that if it passed, the Conservation Commission would be the final arbiter of the property. Now, as far as managing the forest is concerned, there are a large number of foresters in this area who can give us advice without charge. They belong to the Forestry Service and provide that forest. Each community has a forester assigned to it. And that's one of the ways we can do it. First of all. Second of all, there are people on this commission who are not ignorant of what foresting is necessary to be done. The property was logged over about 10 years ago, and most of the harvestable timber has been taken. Jay and I and Harrison Drinkwater and Alan Strickland have walked on the property a lot. And we know that there are open areas that were created by that logging that offer us alternate habitats that will increase the diversity of wildlife. When the climax vegetation occurs here or anywhere, the sunlight is blocked out from getting down to the ground. The brush dies away. And consequently, the habitat that rabbits and foxes and other small animals need disappears. So by clearing spaces in the forest, you actually create these diverse habitats, which in turn encourages diversity of wildlife. So those are the management practices that would be instituted here. The availability of trails, there is a class 6 road.
Class 6 road that goes through, and then there's a couple of other roads that go through. There's one that follows the stream at the bottom of the valley that goes right along. That's really pretty.
And those would be then the responsibility of the Conservation Commission to maintain, and hence the desire for a trail master who will go around and observe those trails and let us know what needs to be cleared, and then we can hire groups to go and do that. I've already contacted several commercial outfits here because the town has some restrictive problems with allowing volunteers to use chainsaws, and that will eliminate a lot of people's willingness to go to chainsaw school when they've been using chainsaws for 30 years and not cut off their legs. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to get the 10% of the current use fees up to $5,000 a year to afford the funds to clear those, because those trails, as part of the master plan, are considered to be the important part of the recreation element of the Enfield leaps. If those trails become blocked and are not safely usable, then the idea of having trails is basically defeated. And we have a lot of trails here that need to be monitored. So that's the background.
That helps, thanks.
The recreation portion of the master plan hasn't been written yet, so there's no specific reference to that section of town. I know it's come up in this committee a couple of times. That is one of the next chapters that's going to be written. And obviously there are many conservation crosses everything we do, right? So you guys will be included. Those trails, one is McAllister, the one that comes directly in on the on right off of Methodist Hill is McAllister. It connects to Atherton, which has an interesting split and then wraps back up and around. Lebanon has multiple times now actively considered abandoning it. So I think if you guys have an interest in it joining to the neighboring trail system, the farmers, the Patches,
Right,
who have it, have lobbied very hard to City Hall. I don't know where it's at right now, but it's
close it, right?
right. And that actually connects down over onto 120 if you've ever walked out in the woods. And 120 is, there's the Great Brook and it's beautiful down there.
Yeah.
So if you have an active interest in promoting the trail piece and connecting to somewhere, you might want to see what Lebanon's up to as
Okay.
well. Just
That's
as
good
a,
advice, thank you.
right, because I think they are gonna be negotiating with the Patches who are farmers. We want to support farmers, but also they've got sap lines running across. So are they gonna trade out and say, hey, we'll abandon these roads and give you these? And are the roads that are connected to us the ones they're gonna abandon? I don't know what the law is in New Hampshire. Vermont has very specific ones about both towns, and I have some pretty strong feelings about keeping those open for snowshoeing and,
Yeah,
foot recreation. And I think the reason that you guys think that parcel is beautiful, from what I've heard, is those access points. So you might just to put a bug in your ear.
that's good to know. I mean, a connection down to Lebanon, going down to Great Brook, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, Atherton. So if you look on the best, easiest thing to do is look on the town GIS and just pull any Methodist Hill, zoom in, and you can see that Atherton, I'm gonna call it Upper and Lower Atherton. I think on the actual Lebanon side, there's another name for part of it.
Okay.
But if you zoom in, you can see it loops around one way and then there's a piece that goes over to 120.
Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah, I've been, cautioned about patches. They're very, how should one say,
Politically powerful.
conservative in what they allow to go on the property. The important thing that I see is that particular farm, constitutes about 1,000 acres.
Mhm.
And it is territory that wildlife can wander on, and the Methodist Hill property could well serve as a corridor into that property by wildlife, which at the present time, they don't have a lot of space to move because of the development on Methodist Hill. So those are things that the patch property can offer for wildlife without necessarily interacting with the patches themselves. But until the committee decides what, if anything, they want to do with the property besides just sell it to somebody, there's no point in contacting the patches and talking about it.
No, I think,
I
Kate mentioned the
was
town of
more
Lebanon.
Lebanon, because
Right.
Lebanon is the one who is gonna be able to
Control.
make the decision on the roads themselves.
The Class 6 road, that's the factor.
So if you had an interest,
Yeah.
in supporting that, I'm not saying, it's obviously there's a million ways
Oh, I
this
know.
could go. I just, so that you're aware that that has been an ongoing, and we have sent, members of our team at least twice to weigh in the past on not disconnecting our
Yeah.
Class 6.
Okay,
Do you think or who would you suggest that I contact? Because I have been in contact with the chairman of the Conservation Commission in Lebanon,
Mhm.
Plainfield, Grafton, Grantham, and Canaan. And the only response I ever got from any of them was the one from Canaan. So, who would I contact in Lebanon to discuss this situation and find out where they're processing, what they're doing?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, they're city government, so they run very differently than us, but they do have city councilors just like we do. And in terms of my closest colleagues, other than the people right in town, are people in their realm. And so I've had good experiences looking them up and reaching out to city councilors to ask them questions. Sometimes they reroute me. So, and they're quite responsive. So you might be able to look down the list of.
Well, I will
talk
start
to the
out
mayor.
with the Conservation Commission.
Jerry, maybe a specific question, I think you would just kind of
No, I-
reaching out to them in a general sense, rather than reaching and ask them about the Class 6 road.
No,
That's something-
when I sent them initially a response, I was asking them for specific information
Okay.
regarding their support levels, what kind of, contributions they got for the town,
Oh, you
the
can.
budget and so on.
And they
Because
didn't
these were
respond.
things that the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions asked, chairs of conservation commissions in New Hampshire to do
Mhm.
with the people or the communities that surrounded them. So I did ask them specific questions and I got specific answers from the Canaan people. The Canaan people don't have a budget
Right.
from the town, but they get up to $5,000 a year from the current use
Right.
fees. Grafton gets 100% of the current use fees. Grantham never answered me, Plainfield never answered me, Lebanon never answered me, and we actually border some of Hanover too. And I sent letters to them, they never answered. So I can follow that up, but
And the other thing is that Ed has access to the town manager's email list, and we have very good luck posting questions that are a broader question like that to the list and getting feedback from around New Hampshire. So if you needed, he could probably help you on that as well.
okay, great. I will get a hold of Mr. Morris and see what can be done.
I'm also a personal friend with Tim McNamara. I might be able to say, hey, Tim, can we have an informal conversation?
Is he the mayor right now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Tim and I have known each other for the better part of 50 years, so.
yeah.
Well,
Okay, so the other thing I received was the Upper Valley Trail Alliance, the power of the alliance. And
Mhm.
this is a rather good evaluation of trail projects that the alliance has taken on. But in Enfield, there's only 3 red stars, and they were all on private property. So the Trail Alliance has not done anything for the trails that are in the town here. So that's something that we also can talk about or eventually pursue if in fact we want to continue with the idea of having a trail master and somebody to eventually clear these trails. They can provide some of that service apparently from this brochure. Now, if any of you want a copy of this, probably
go online.
Yeah, I'm looking
yeah,
at
if you
it
go
online.
online and ask under Trail Alliance, but they also have a trail finder.
That's what I'm looking at right now. I've used it in the past. It's a pretty great resource.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next letter is from Dr. Elijah Stomel with regard to the role that cyanobacteria toxins may play in the development of ALS, perhaps Parkinson's disease, or Alzheimer's in people who are exposed. He says, since the original paper in 2009, which was a description of the cluster of ALS cases here in Enfield, New Hampshire, we have seen many more cases in proximity to Mascoma Lake. There has been post-mortem analyses on at least 2 cases, and I'm going to contact the pathologists at Dartmouth Hitchcock who performed those procedures, and see whether or not they removed brain tissue from these individuals and looked for one of the primary toxins that has been associated with in vitro and in vivo studies on cyanobacteria. He says all the patients described in the 2009 paper are deceased. So that's where that stands.
I wish I had known about this because my in-laws lived off Mascoma. He died of Parkinson's. She died of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to know that so that I could, if the family agreed, it would be up to me, be up to my wife and that. To have
kept kind
a
of
biopsy done just to,
I've talked to Barbara Jones, and she tells me that a lot of the people who are using that beach at the present time to swim take a compound that is supposedly capable of inactivating the toxin. So there are some people who are sufficiently concerned that they're doing something about it. The problem is that no specific dosage that is capable of producing this kind of damage to the nervous system in people has been described. We don't know what the toxic dose is. Some people have said that the incubation period before the damage to the nervous system becomes clinically available can be 35 years. So exposure as a child, because the toxin can be absorbed through the skin, it can also be inhaled, may take a long time for it to develop. There's also there are many other communities here in New Hampshire that are also experiencing cyanobacteria blooms and that have been reporting ALS cases from time to time. So it's not a unique situation to the Mascoma Lake and Enfield area, but it is something that has not generated a lot of research. And whether or not the papers that I have collected will eventually stimulate that kind of activity is unknown in science. The NIH is often looking for big ticket items with considerable amount of disease, and cyanobacteria or cyanobacteria caused ALS is not exactly a high level priority. Okay, the last item on the agenda here is an update from the Mascoma Bank regarding the Conservation Commission's fund. We have $16,745.33. There were $375.54 deposited in the account on February 7th. And I'm not sure where that came from, although I know that we have in our original budget a conservation fund allocation. And if we don't spend all of the other budgets, so we need to draw out of that to pay that off, that is automatically deposited into the conservation fund in this account. So it may have come from there, but there's no indication as to where it actually came from. But that brought our balance up from 16,368 to 16,745. And we also generated $1.28 for the year in interest.
Don't spend it all in one spot.
Right.
I'll get you an answer on that. I'm asking Ed right now to get you an answer on where the money came from. They should be getting that too.
Is he available 24 hours a day?
I write him emails and he answers, and I won't promise he's available 24 hours. I'll tell you, he's very good at looking at his email.
Great.
So you might not get it tonight, but I'll make sure he gets it to you. So you guys have that answer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there any other business comments?
Sure.
Yeah. I just wanted to see what the group felt. I getting the Boy Scouts to come and help me stack wood. And I was going to, the leader was coming with them, and I would like to just talk about just sort of give them a door to welcome them into the conservation world, see if anybody's interested. I looked at their interest.
It's a good idea, yeah.
I mean, did everybody think that's okay?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. I
I
think
don't
that's
want-
great.
I mean, we talked about networking, in some of our meetings, and that's a good way to do
So
some
I'll
networking.
network, yeah.
That brings up a question. You have been researching the idea of developing an educational.
Yeah, and that kind of, same vein, yeah. I haven't done anything with it yet, but it's still definitely on our docket. There you go. So, I mean, we talked about going to the schools and developing,
That
just
would be
an outreach
big.
program where we could come and talk to the schools about conservation.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we're doing and, just trying to educate people on,
Okay, so I'd like.
but, that's
have
I own it, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
Could you give the commission here an outline at our May meeting as to where you have gone?
Yeah, I'll put together an outline.
Lee, if that meeting with the Boy Scouts takes place before that, could you give us an update
Yes,
of what
I
their
would.
opinion is?
Yeah.
And I would also like to run by an idea. I think I had mentioned it before. When I was on the Conservation Commission previously, we had a pamphlet available at the town offices for new people coming in to buy land. And it wasn't really, really deep, but it gave like, wetlands, and it just told the different statutes. So if people bought land, you know, they would be aware, just as summary, what goes on in Enfield and what the different RSAs, and I can't remember what was in it, but I said I would try to start something like that,
That's a good idea.
you know, and also start, and I had volunteered to do this a while ago, start making, sort of like goals, but, an outline of the RSAs and permits needed for, you know, like wetlands and things like that, so that if people, you know, we would know, the group would know, because it gets very involved, very complicated. And I know I'm always looking up. I'd like to have a summary of, like, say, what's needed for what permit and how long you have to take it to get it done. I mean, anybody think that's a good idea?
Yeah, well, I'm doing that right now.
Oh, you are,
The
okay.
New Hampshire Association of Conservation
Okay.
Commissions, for its members, have been sponsoring a whole series of seminars on wetland permits. And I have a list of the permits that are necessary and
That's good.
required. That when these seminars are done, I will provide each member of you with a list of all the RSAs and the ETWQs that are required for these kinds of applications, and what the Conservation Commission should be looking for if in fact those applications have not included that type of discussion.
Oh, good, that's good.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that we need to vote for a chair and a vice chair. And Elisa Bonnet has said that all appointed board commissioners and committees shall wait or should wait until May 1st when the new members are appointed. We've had one member has requested reappointment, and to my knowledge, he's not been sworn in. So I'm going to wait until May 1st. But I want all of you to think about whether or not you are interested in becoming a chair of the Conservation Commission here or a vice chair. Because we will hold a nomination. If you want to you will raise your hand and say, I'd like to run for that office, and then we will hold a ballot.
So typically, when you organize, you have a nomination, someone nominates the other person and there's a second, and they either decline to be in the running or they don't, and you do it for multiple people, and that's the standard process.
Well, first of all, we have a small group here. Second of all, the obligations of the chair of this committee extend beyond what many of the members are capable of contributing. And so I want to be sure that we don't have just a succession of chairs, because forcing that type of responsibility on somebody is going to end up in less than a satisfactory performance. So I want the people that are going to run for chair, if they want to know what they're getting into. And so I'm giving you a month to mull this over and make a decision whether you want to volunteer to be a chair, or whether you decide that you just want to carry on as a member of the commission.
Okay.
And the select board and the town offices wrote to every committee, not just this committee. And we asked, so it's generally, the guidance we offer is you do the reorganization. And the other thing that was included in that email is that we encourage the chair to change each year. And we do the same thing for select board. And the reason is we're trying to make sure we have a constant change and flow of who is leading so that you have an issue, right? Like somebody gets very, very sick, they get hospitalized, they have to move, whatever. You're constantly training your leadership. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take a former chair and make them vice chair so that you can work together, because you guys work together anyways. It's more that we are trying to strive to pass the knowledge and include a broad scope of people. And that's something I think we've been doing better at in recent years. Because it's very important to us that the work you guys are doing and the knowledge you have get preserved as a body of knowledge and passed on.
The hardest thing, and I understand why, the hardest thing is to try to bring younger blood in, you know what I mean? I mean, all of us are, you know, we're on the other end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm 42. I've been doing this for a long time, but it is, and it's,
Because people are busy, the younger
Oh, yeah.
people, they got families, they're so busy, and, you know, that's the hard part.
that's what I was showing, my daughter is asking for more screen time in the middle of this meeting. She's doing PBS learning program, so I'm like, sure, there you go, but, and taking notes, but I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's very hard. It's something we continually ask,
I know.
but I think we are getting younger people. I would say, you know, Whitney's in a lot of meetings with me, and so we're getting a balance, because the most important thing we can do is preserve the hard work
Mm.
and the learning that everybody who's gone before us. So it's not a let's replace people, it's very
No,
much a
I mean-
let's preserve it.
It's based on what you just said about, you know, succession, you know, moving things up, you know what I mean? If you have young people, they come in, they learn, they move up and they take it over, and it just keeps on flowing, you know? That's what you want.
It's a universal problem
Yep.
because I moved here from across the country
Yeah.
and the same situation there.
Yeah.
Everyone on every committee that I was on was my age or older.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I can kidnap one of those Boy Scouts.
You know, I've had very good success, and there's the form on the town website.
Yeah.
When someone even looks at me like they might be interested, I throw them the form and I'm like, just fill this out and send it in. I don't know if I've done that to any of you guys ever.
Is Mystic Sanborn gonna talk tonight?
I'm not done with the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Before we go to Craig, if I can have a couple minutes. First off, did everybody see my posting
Yes,
regarding the Route 4A logging?
Yeah.
Okay,
very good.
so you got the thing, you did not, what's your email?
Harold J. Wyman.
No pronunciation in there? Lyman, okay.
Well, some people
At
sensitive to
gmail.com.
logging, you know, maybe they don't understand
Mhm.
the process and what.
Okay, I want everybody to know I put myself down as a Conservation Commission member. I did not represent that I was the Conservation Commission. Let's put that down. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Jim Ayler from Fish and Wildlife sent me an excellent presentation on what they did, why they did it, et cetera. So, okay. The next thing, immediately after town meeting, my wife and she needed to go to Hobby Lobby and
Oh, Hobby Lobby, yeah.
she had to go. Anyway, so in the trip down, we were discussing what had happened in town meeting. Here's a couple of things that she brought up. She had no idea that the Conservation Commission existed before I became a member. Even after I became a member, she had no idea what we do. Then we started, I said, okay, well, let's throw some ideas around. Take out a piece of paper and let's start. So here's some thoughts that we came up with. She says, I think you ought to have Ben Killam down, give a talk on bears.
We have
Well,
had
Yeah.
How long ago?
Yeah,
quite a while.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it's time for a new one, right? A new presentation. Get people interested in wildlife. Ben Killam, get a Fish and Wildlife warden up here, to talk about deer and other animals. How about putting out a monthly newsletter every 2 months? And the idea I came up with was, do you know? And then come up with little factoid things about conservation, about animals, about wetlands, etc. Just put it on a trifold, single piece of paper and spend some money and mail it up to everybody in the town. So they get a did you know letter from the Conservation Commission. Another thing that Jay's been working on, we talked about going into the schools. And Kate, after I did my presentation at the Shakers, she said, well, I want you to go to my sister's class.
Cousin.
Cousin, I'm sorry.
She's like a
So
sister.
we're working on that. my going in and doing the wildlife
Mhm.
presentation. And I'll even expand it over what we did. These are just some thoughts of getting us out there, getting us known in the town. Let them get to know who we are, what we do, not what we don't do, but what we do and how we promote conservation, wildlife, et cetera, within the town.
Great.
Agreed, and I think we also agreed that we were going to have more education, like Bill Killam.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
get people, I know I could get some people from that northern woodlands, because they didn't have time to put together something to come down. It's a shaker
Right.
one,
Mhm.
and I think that turned out well for us anyway.
Yeah, that lady was good.
Oh, Pat Buxton?
Oh, she was great.
So I've got
I
a
thought-
list of ideas that we just,
Yeah.
brainstormed.
Doug,
yeah.
you are in charge of performing that particular function and developing a newsletter that can be emailed, not sent out by
All right.
post, because we've sent out 110 copies of a notification to all the people that have the highest valued wildlife habitat here in Enfield.
But I
as
think
long
we need
as
to
our-
include
And that
everybody,
cost quite a bit.
the apartment dwellers,
That cost
the
quite a bit.
people who only go
Right.
fishing.
And that's what your newsletter will cover.
What about putting it, so like the
Putting it on the
Heritage,
listserv.
yeah, so, well, we have the town newsletter every
Right.
month.
Yeah.
And I know Heritage had done something really cool, which might be, and it would attract, I think, more readership if you guys were consistently doing it. And we could promote
Yeah.
online so that people know you're doing it, so they're looking in the newsletter,
Yeah.
get to sign up. Heritage was covering like different names and sections of town, and it's really cool, right? And
Mhm.
so I think Madeline Johnson was really the one who kicked that off. I don't know if there are other people.
Madeline does it.
Madeline does it. Okay, I was
Yeah.
like, I know Madeline started it, but I think it would be an awesome tie-in for you guys.
Yep.
And we could, you guys should be included.
Some other things we came up with, bat boxes,
Mhm.
making and distributing bat boxes, teaching people how to make bat boxes with a little workshop.
I put one in my yard 5 years ago and no bats have yet moved into it.
But I really want those back.
Oh,
It's following all the rules. I put it the right distance from the forest, the right height, everything.
Bluebird
Nice.
boxes.
The,
Bluebird boxes are fantastic. I built some for my neighbor's mother down in New London. She put them up 24 hours
Yeah.
later. All 3 bluebird boxes were occupied by bluebirds.
Cool.
Other
okay,
things,
so Doug, you are going to be responsible for submitting a notice to the town newsletter.
Okay.
And I will send Elisa Burnett your email address
Yep.
so that she can be in touch with you and give you a deadline as to when that is
Right.
due.
And we can all provide,
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to
can all
have
provide.
everybody
yeah.
Well, that's
send
up-
me, hey Doug,
Yeah.
have you thought of this? Have you thought of that?
Yeah.
That's up to you to organize.
Gotcha.
Anybody wants to send, you all have
Please.
each other's email addresses.
Yeah.
Please send me
So,
ideas.
But
So that we
the,
can-
the important thing is that there is a deadline so
Yeah.
that you all have to be aware of how far in advance you need to get Doug your comments in order for him to get it to the newsletter in time.
Well, if we get a whole bunch of ideas, I'm gonna have several stacked up.
Yeah, you can
I
put
can-
them out in
Okay.
different months.
And that's what Paul and I were saying is, why not one little short blurb per month?
Did you know?
Did you know?
Yeah.
That was my title.
Yep.
Did you know? From the Conservation Commission.
Like they do in the Muskoma,
Mhm.
the Muskoma monthly
It's,
thing.
it's up to you to organize and run it by the committee,
Yeah.
commission when you've got a format to submit.
There you go. I'll be glad to.
Okay, Craig, have you looked over those
Workshops.
and you think
Yeah, they've been doing a lot.
those are reasonable?
Like the how to build stuff.
May I advance to the chair over there?
Of course,
Of course, yeah.
please do.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I am here on the idea that you might possibly be needing a trail master, what you call. So I've read the responsibilities from the former trail master, Alan Strickland. And what we do is somewhat similar to that. As a volunteer trail crew. The duties are often the same. He has them here listing, keeping trails clean, clear the bowl downs, brush the trails, maintain the, bridges, et cetera. Organize community work days. I don't know what's been done in the past exactly. It sounds like what you have is Alan doing a good part of the work by himself. And on occasion, finding, other volunteers, other groups for, bigger projects. That is somewhat part of it. What I would like to say is that there is another model for how to do these things. And it usually involves a more active use of, volunteers who meet more frequently. And I have here the last year's work log summary for the volunteer trail crew that I have the privilege of running. And around, please.
Same document? Is this the same document or is it two?
Came off the same file.
Okay, I just want, I want to, we get one or two?
You get one.
One, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so, but basically we have like 1,000 hours or so on one page. I will be happy to let people glance through that bit here too.
Your time, what to say, is that?
Give that to,
This is a target element.
I'm sharing with Whitney. Do you want one?
Get through.
That's the next.
Oh, okay.
I would also point out that the second line of the title is our website, which is kind of extensive right now.
so is there a charge for these services?
We are all volunteer. We do not charge for our services. We accept donations, which go to our fiscal sponsor, the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. They handle our money. They are a 501c3 and they file return to the IRS and whatever else they have to do. We are a 501c2 chartered or recognized with the Secretary of State. And as long as they handle our money for us, that takes care of that problem.
Okay, well,
This is
this is something that we would like to certainly discuss and consider. And if I know that there's the bridge across the Harris Brook that I helped to construct and
Mhm.
wooden and may need some revisions. I know that Alan Strickland repaired the walkway along the Grafton Pond portion of the Bicknell Brook.
Right.
And we reimbursed him for his out-of-pocket expenses.
Mm-hmm.
But he pointed out that his age was getting to the point where he didn't feel he could continue that kind of activity any longer. In any event, this is very good, and we will certainly be in consideration of this. I had anticipated that the trails would need to be looked at twice a year. Once in the spring for the winter falls and once in the fall, so that people didn't catch their skis when they're doing it. If you guys feel you need to look at it more frequently and that's fine with me. But I don't want to have this be a large burden on anybody or any volunteers to the extent that it's not necessary. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So, so any materials that you needed would be taken care of,
Any materials needed will be purchased by the landowner or by the, commission that, has us there.
Right.
We don't buy materials that, are going to be left in sight.
That makes sense.
yeah.
It's the only
Well, we had
time
always anticipated reimbursing whoever bought the materials for
Exactly.
that.
You're a well-hidden secret. I've never heard
But you-
you.
We are
Labor,
all over Mount Cardigan, Mount Kearsarge and Mount Sunapee.
Yeah.
Good for you.
it's very impressive.
As you can see, first paragraph, we put in over 1,000 hours a year between us and other groups.
And none of your time and labor is, that's all volunteer. The only thing that materials is,
Well,
And a donation.
let me say this. Donations, yeah, that pays for the, food and drink and so on.
yeah.
And it pays for tools
Yeah.
and postage and the post office boxes and the website and things like that, okay?
Mhm.
We don't work for wages. And one of the prime reasons for that has to do with liability. Which, without tooting my horn, I'll say I've had to become rather familiar with the RSA's concerning liability of volunteers. And let us say that the New Hampshire RSA's about liability for volunteers are such that they are kind of a model for other states, so I'm told. The protection in law that we have is about as comprehensive here as it is anywhere. It is our custom, when you have an all-volunteer crew, which is far more the norm in this state than hired crews, which are very expensive. The custom is if you're got the job of patrolling trails in springtime for blowdowns and so on, you start by patrolling with hand tools only. You send, people out there under a team leader. They will demolish and remove the, trees across the trail as much as they can with hand tools. In some cases, there is, too much tree there to be worthwhile, removing by cutting up with hand tools. And then you just mark where it is on a sketch map. And when you're back from your little work trip, you hand that over to a chainsaw team. So they know exactly where they are going to have to cut. And they also have a nice clear trail to walk to get there. It's a very efficient form of doing things that we had to, if anything, accentuate and sharpen after the great ice storm of 1998,
Yeah.
which I'm sure everyone here remembers.
Oh, yes.
That was unbelievable.
That was horrible.
It was.
For about a year and a half, almost all we did was just to chop blowdowns.
Mhm.
We had to buy a new chainsaw and then have it rebuilt towards the end of that because it got used so much.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the liability, when we're working on state lands, the state has rules and requirements for people who are authorized to use power equipment. And what they require is the same course and same standards of behavior and the same PPE to be used by volunteers as is used by the state employees. And that's just part of the contract. We have a signed contract with them called a Group Volunteer Service Agreement, which is it's been pretty much standardized for about 4 years now. For the previous 3 years, it was being developed in consultation with the state parks people and the volunteers and the Attorney General. Nowadays, they are pretty much standardized. I have a copy here, for instance. Thing of it is that we have certain things, expectations of what they will do for us and what we'll do for them, and the coverage of the RSAs for us as volunteers, in particular, RSA 21234, RSA 50814, RSA 50817. I can spot those another time. Point being that we have agreements and we are covered, and also we are covered by the state's liability policy. So one question I would have is a person using a chainsaw or other power equipment on town of Enfield trails, are they covered by the town's liability insurance policy, and what about workman's comp? And what rules might there be that would cover these matters? I wonder about that, and I do not.
To
know the
find
answer.
that out.
Well, I
The town's
looked into
law.
some of it and,
Yes, sir.
I've looked into some of it and talked to the, town manager. The regulations that he told me of were that any volunteers that were, anticipating using chainsaws had to take the chainsaw class
Yep,
because the liability insurance otherwise would not apply to them were they injured. But if you are covered by the state, it seems to me that that would include Enfield.
as a matter of fact, what that includes is state land, only state land, and state land only.
So that would be land that's owned by the Upper Valley Land Trust?
No,
No,
They're
It
private.
would
that's
be-
state.
it would be then land owned by the Fish and Game Department of New Hampshire.
Right.
Okay.
It would include that.
Mhm.
Because we have the very similar terms in the contract that we have with Fish and Game. Yes,
All right, well, then I will look into that, and see exactly what the regulations are and, provide you with a copy. I have your telephone number, but I don't have your email address.
the email is at the very bottom of this summary work law.
Oh, CRGSN.
BRN@yahoo.com.
That's all I need. Okay,
Mhm.
all right, then, if the commission is interested in pursuing this, I will pursue it. Are you interested in pursuing this?
Yes,
Of course,
They do
make
need-
the
yeah.
motion that we allow our chair to pursue this matter. Bring us back a report on what we can do.
Kate, I have a question you made
Do I
on,
hear a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Abstentions? So ordered.
last,
Mr. Chairman, may I say just a couple more things, please?
Yes.
Thank you. What I'm used to, what we as volunteers are used to is to have crews of volunteers who turn out every so often, oftentimes one day a month in season. And we go out and we do all the work that's involved. Both the level 1 trail tending, clean the drains, cut the brush, clear the blow downs, paint the blazes. And also the level 2 building, where we build steps, water bars, bridges, retaining walls, whatever else needs to be done to stabilize the trail, control the erosion, and ensure hiker safety and hiker cooperation with these measures. Volunteers do it all, and quite frankly, with a little practice and a little esprit de corps, it's amazing how enthusiastic they can get.
Well, yes, I'm sure of that. The question I have is, how many of the volunteers do you expect to come from Enfield per se?
That would be a question for the commission, because the commission has the contacts and the ability to reach out and talk to people, and we'll see how they can do at raising volunteers, which would be for a specific day on a regular basis. And it will be for specific tasks, some of which would be, routine trail tending, as I just mentioned, level 1, and some of which would be the more fun stuff, which is building things.
So who
So
would,
that really is a challenge to the commission to raise volunteers.
now, do you determine that, organize the volunteers and determine what level?
That's going to depend on the job of the day, and yes, you match the job to the available volunteers. If you have people who've never done this before, you cannot expect them to set rock. If you have all of your trails in great shape in terms of brushing and blazing and cleaning drains, that's all well and good, but at that point, you're going to want to build things. But if the crew you've got has no experience at that, then you're gonna have to keep it real easy and simple. A learning day for them, kind of things like that.
So if I understand you correctly, Enfield Conservation Commission would be responsible for collecting or organizing, and providing you with a list of volunteers to, do the trails in this, community, or do you have the volunteers already that you just move around?
Well, we can take a kind of hybrid model here. First off, this is Enfield Trails in Enfield Town, and you're a town commission. It seems only fair to me that this commission would have the main responsibility of raising volunteers within the town. Also, what I can do is I put out a invite by email to the trail crew for each of our work days. And there's 30 some odd people on the list. If you got 3 or 4 on a given work day, then we can usually go out and do something fairly substantial. That can be increased if we have larger teams, so we can spread them out more widely, each team with their own leader.
Okay, Doug, that's gonna be something I want you to include in your newsletter, a request for volunteers to clear trails in Enfield. And, give them, your email address so that they can submit their names. And we'll see how many we can round up that would be participate in this.
Would it be
That's a
helpful?
fair trial. Yep.
Would it be helpful for a member of the town team to build you a quick form that would make you a list? So it would have like name, email, phone, and a blurb about their experience. So you didn't have to compile them on your own. Because we have a form maker, so that would, and that's what we've been doing for committees. And then it
Nice.
spits out a nice thing and you wouldn't have to paste them.
Perfect.
No,
It's up to you.
at the last Old Home Days, we had to have volunteers, all volunteers, sign a paper. Is that something that the town provided? I'm sure it.
Yep, there's a volunteer form online. It really depends on who's directing the work. So Ed would know a lot more about the legality and requirements of our insurance. I think everyone knows insurance is getting less and less,
Flexible.
yes, that's a very nice way of putting it. And more risk adverse. So, and can ask those questions for you. But I know every organization I work with has a volunteer form. It's,
Okay, I think the first step though is to find out how many people are actually willing to do this kind of work.
I suspect.
It's gonna be a group primarily that are probably already retired, since people working 8 hours a day.
Well, or you get the young people 18 to 30.
Well, they're
Boy
in school
Scouts.
except for some. Do
Yeah,
you
this-
work on the weekends or only weekdays?
We have the custom of working on Saturdays, certain Saturdays.
Oh, okay.
that'd be a great
We-
family.
The,
It would be.
the board has set that we're gonna have a regular third Saturday weekday in the season. But what we also find is that, the likeliest source of volunteers is people who are recently retired.
Yeah. That's what I
Oh,
thought.
weird.
Okay.
Mhm.
Teaser patrol.
Do you have any restrictions?
They're
on
our
age,
favorite
like
people.
teenagers?
The
anything like
way
that?
that works is,
Stop kissing.
we do not, have, unaccompanied minors
Mhm.
because of the liability of that.
Mhm.
And none of us have, had a criminal background check, for that purpose. We have just decided that, we simply won't have, unaccompanied minors working with us. Now,
Wise choice for many reasons.
indeed. Now, it so happens that we do work with, teenagers from summer camps. But every time that happens, a team of about 10 teenagers and 3 adult counselors. And every team, that they are part of includes at least one of those counselors. We never are in a position where there's nobody there but some unvetted cardigan Highlander. Which is not to say that anything's gonna happen to us, but just for everyone's liability and peace of mind, that's how we do things. And they are comfortable with that.
That's perfect.
Well, it works.
All right, well, I think, that's something for the Conservation Commission to think about between now and May 1, and we will definitely get together or give you an answer about our willingness to provide the volunteers and, subscribe to your service.
I thank you very much.
And the Conservation Commission, from its, conservation fund from time to time, could make a contribution to the Alliance, Trail Alliance.
The Trails Alliance or to the Cardigan Highlanders?
Well,
Trails Alliance.
I thought it was that you worked through the Trail Alliance, but at any rate, whatever your organization is, we could make contributions to it.
Yes, just for the record, when you make any donation to the Cardigan Highlanders Volunteer Trail Group, you write the check to the Upper Valley Trails Alliance.
Oh, that's where they come in.
Mhm.
Okay.
And, because they are a physical sponsor, but then you put the initials CHVTC on the memo line.
Mhm.
So that check goes into our account.
All right.
So it's done.
When we decide, you provide us with that specific
I'll take
information,
it
so
again.
we know what we're doing correctly.
No worries, no worries. So we'll know that it's going where you intended.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Could you say that and what does it mean?
Oh, at the bottom here, there's
Yes.
just a little, blessing in the Gaelic. It means, all thanks to God and health to everyone. Ulia Tankagia, Agslanja, Adus Ulia Galore.
Thank you.
Anything else?
This is the Cardigan Highlanders, and we do borrow somewhat from, Highland culture,
How long have you been, what, how long?
1985.
No kidding.
That's our
Heard
38th
of
look
this.
off.
Have you heard of this?
I've definitely seen you out on the trails working.
Uh-huh.
When he comes to the Enfield Center Post Office quite frequently to get his mail, I see him probably at least twice a week.
That's me, yep.
Now, what's so special about you guys? You have to get your treats and stuff from Bad Luck.
Well, that's the best, that is Walker's shortbread.
Oh.
Bidnock in South Bay, and you might as well have the real thing. Besides, it's, NZ bars, sugar, flour. That, definitely gives you the energy.
If you aren't aware,
Yeah.
the best-selling soda in Scotland
It's
is
Iron Brew.
Is what?
for sale at the candy shop across Mill Beans.
Oh, Ava.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I had that
Or
stuff
Safe
once.
Sophie. Which one? I was like, which one is it?
Ava's is on my.
I don't know.
Later.
I don't know how people could possibly drink it, but then again, I'm not from Glasgow, so.
Well, they put a little white horse in it. Well, why would you mix something good into that?
Indeed. My thought of drink has to do with Dalwhinnie and Points West. Not soft drinks. Anyways, we digress. We digress.
Do you
Thank you
have
very
any
much
more?
for your time here
Thank you.
today.
Yeah, we appreciate your coming and giving us this information, and we will certainly be in touch with you.
Yeah, do that. After all, the season isn't really started yet. It doesn't start until the snow's off the trails.
Yeah, right. So we're in time for a spring review.
That'd be the size of it.
Okay,
Anyway, more than tank. Many thanks.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Greg.
It was enjoyable.
Well, it's a good start. Here's now.
Mrs. Stewart, I give this to every new member. I don't know whether you have a copy of it.
I
but
do
that-
not, yeah, but do you have, is this an extra or shall we order another?
No,
Okay.
that's the copy that I ordered for the last member of the commission. Since
Excellent.
you're it, you're gonna get that
Welcome,
copy.
Katie.
Hey,
And I will see that you get a copy of this from, Rob Taylor if you don't, because he photocopied these others.
are these just the maps of town?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what, I can, I'll commit to bringing my laptop and looking them up if you just read me the map and lot.
Oh, so you
Then-
don't want a hard copy?
I don't need a hard copy because I think it'd be better to not have the trees and then I'll just have the latest one online.
And I usually project them.
I was gonna say,
See you, okay.
Whitney
Yeah.
puts them up online.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
And so,
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. The minute the meeting has been adjourned at
Yep.
8:55.
All right. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you all for
Good night,
coming.
Dave.
good night.
See you later.
Because we've adjourned, this is not official, but everybody